All right, all right. Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to On the Count. My name is Pedro Lugo. I am the host, and today we have Malcolm Powell with us as a guest. Hello, Malcolm. How are you?
How you doing, Mr. Lugo? I'm doing pretty good, sir.
All right, all right. A little bit about me and Malcolm. I met Malcolm around 2005. I was a unit counselor back then, and he was one of the inmates in the unit. Um, Real quick question, Malcolm. By 2005, do you remember how much time had you done by then?
I had done 12 years.
Okay,
By,
12 years. Wow. And you did a total of how many years did you end up doing?
I did 17 years and 3 months.
Wow, 17 years
So-
and 3 months.
Yeah,
And
17 years and 3 months.
and that was with the Bureau of Prisons, Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, let me start. I'm going to say one thing that by then, when I met Malcolm, I could tell there was a little bit of switch there. He treated me with such respect, which he still does today. I'm amazed at that. And but it's not just that. What I saw in him was a little bit different. We had a lot of conversations while I was his counselor, and he had this his in his mind. He already had put in his mind that determination that he was going to make a change and get out of prison. And when he got out, the change was, I'm not coming back. And he's been able to do that. But really, I want to start with a couple of things. Michael, tell me a little bit. I want to start way back. I want to talk a little bit about your childhood. And
Okay.
then we'll move from there. Tell me about your childhood.
I'm the oldest of my mother's four children. She had four sons. I'm the oldest child. I grew up basically in a single parent home. Mom worked two jobs in a low income neighborhood. We grew up struggling. Mom made ends meet. I pretty much I was pretty decent at school, but I seen early on that mom needed some help, and so I started doing little small jobs from working at a grocery store at the age 13. I was getting paid under the table. I used to pump gas at gas stations, had a paper route, and ultimately, as I got older, things just sort of took a turn for the streets, to be
And
honest.
so you grew up, the struggle is there. I mean, um, and you did well at school, but your idea was really, man, I need to do something a little bit more. I want to help out a little bit more. Because how you say you have four, you got three other brothers, right?
Yeah, three brothers, three under me. Yes, sir. I'm the oldest.
Okay, so you kind of felt a sense of responsibility as well to be able to help mom and look over your brothers. I imagine that was something
Exactly.
in your heart.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just stepping up to be the man of the house at an early age, and based upon my family background, my overall family background, and our dynamics in my family, and some of the examples that were in the neighborhood that I grew up in. It was like the streets to me was like the only obvious solution at that time, and in my particular outlook on life at that time.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Buffalo, New York, but I was raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay, and that is where you are located at now. We here in North Carolina.
Yes,
We both are still here in North Carolina after all these years.
yes,
Um,
sir.
so family dynamics. When you say family dynamics, I know everybody's like, "Wow, well, okay, what are you talking about when you say family dynamics?"
Okay, when I say family dynamics, it's like I grew up with, and my grandmother all my life ran what we call in North Carolina, they call them bootleg houses, where
Mm-hmm.
after hours, grandma sold liquor, she sold drinks. Uh, Sometimes you can get something to smoke from grandma. I had an uncle who was pretty heavy in the streets, and kept plenty of money, nice cars, and things of that nature. So those were sort of the dynamics, of my family. Some of the things that inspired me to take a route that I perceived at that time to be a faster means of acquiring money to help my family.
Okay. At what age did that come on? At what age did you start?
I would say around 15, 16, somewhere in that age, 15, 16.
Yeah, that age, and we be thinking about, well, I would like to have those Jordans that the other guys are wearing, and I'm not wearing.
Exactly. Exactly. And your peers at that age can be pretty cruel, pretty harsh. So mom couldn't afford some of the things that, I wanted at that age, and even some of the things that my younger brothers wanted at that age, but I seen a means to be able to provide those things, and that was the route I took at an earlier age, 15, 16.
And thinking about it, I don't think what really, and what kind of you could see and perceive what other people were doing and what they were receiving, and you're like, well, I'm working, but I'm not making enough to even make an impact or difference. But they are. Maybe I'll go that route. And my
Exactly.
that's I imagine that was a train of thought right then and there at 15. Well, this is not making it. Am I
That
correct?
yeah, that and we talking the late 80s when it was a boom in the crack epidemic in our community, and at that time it was like all of the young guys, to me, at that time, that was the thing to do. I mean, in high school, it was like coming up, all of the girls, they flocked around the athletes, the basketball players, the football players. But in reality, when crack cocaine exploded in our community and the young guys was able to get all those nice things, it was like they took the spotlight from the athletes in school. So I pretty much was influenced to go that route early.
Well, I didn't think about that. I do remember the crack. How that went just like wildfire back in the 80s, and how it damaged a lot of communities. You know,
Yes,
and,
sir.
and if you really think about it, the damage it caused and the image that it created, it was a big impact, especially in the black community.
Yes,
Not
sir.
that they were the only ones impacted, but I think the majority they had the most of the impact because you know the 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 war on drugs was going on very strong at the time. So I imagine that was where you got caught up at some point in time when you began your sentence. Um,
Yes.
so I know you did federal time. Did you do any state time?
Yeah, I think I went to state time. I went to state prison maybe three three to four times. I'm gonna say three prior to ever going to the federal system. And they was drug related charges, firearm charges, things of that nature. I think the first time I went I was 17. I did maybe like 7 months, went back on a violation, did like 6 or 7 months, Then another time, another charge, and I think I did maybe 7, 8 months on that as well.
Okay, so you started going in prison pretty early at 17. That's pretty early by the time
17.
you. So you
Yes,
ended
sir.
up in juvie in North Carolina.
Well, not juvie. I went to Polk Youth Center at
Okay.
that time. It was in Raleigh. Um, I went there. I went there a couple times. Polk Youth Center.
And how was that? I know Polk when I visited because I got to visit Polk a couple times. It was rough, and I got to go to some juvenile places in North Carolina that can be pretty rough as well.
Yeah, well, at that time, it wasn't the one that was in Butner. This
Okay.
was in Raleigh on Blue Ridge Boulevard, and it was Gladiator School. It was gladiator school. You had to know how to fight. Uh, you had to run with your clique. If you was from Winston Salem, you hung with the guys from Winston Greensboro. I mean, if you was from Charlotte, you hung with Charlotte. Fayetteville hung with Fayetteville, and sort of like a gang type of setting.
Okay.
It was
Um. So pretty much, for the next, I would say 3 years between that. When did you ended up in the federal system?
well during my time of being in the streets. I go away for a few months, like I described, and then I come back. I picked up where I left off. The last time that I came out, the people who ended up being my co-defendants on my federal case were individuals that I grew up with from a younger age, and they excelled and got on a higher status in the drug game, and I jumped right into with them on the level that they was on, as if I didn't miss a beat, and that ultimately led to a indictment by the federal government in 1995.
Okay. Now you say you picked it up, and this is, and I know we're gonna get, but you picked it up just like you haven't missed a step every time you went back on the street.
Well, to be honest with you, the last time that I was on state, I sold drugs on the state. They had what's called a road squad, and you go out and do work. And I used to actually have somebody to meet me and have somebody else carry drugs back into the prison. So I didn't even stop at that particular time. So when I came out, it was just like, you know, who's the new connect? Who do I'm ready to go on and turn it up a notch. So I never really missed a beat during that particular time.
Let me ask you this: now that you look back on those times, how crazy was it?
I mean, really, I really wouldn't say it was normal. It was normal because if I could make money that way on the streets, and then I could make money that way inside the prison, it was just a continuation and a normal way of life for somebody who was from where I'm from, and who had been orientated by the streets, grew up in a liquor house. Hustling, was the way. And so
Okay,
it
so at that time you just have blinders on. This is all I could see.
pretty much, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's
Okay.
the outlook.
Okay. So in 1995, you got indicted.
Hmm.
Um, did they come and pick you up at home, or they picked you up in the street? They send you. How did that happen? Speaker went offline. I think we have a
We'll get him back
Well, we'll
when
get.
he up. Um, and I know you were going to get to this. We had someone named Mark in the comments was really interested in the. I'll put the actual comment up that he
Yeah.
says. He says, "I'm sure you're going to get to this if you haven't already, but what was the turning point that straightened you out?" So he wanted to ask him that personally himself.
Oh yeah, I want to ask him that as well. But I have a question here that just you
There he
know,
is.
Back
yeah, there's
in,
okay. No, I had a question in the
yeah,
comments,
I'm with
but I'm gonna get to that question because I want to
you.
get to that question in a few minutes. Um, with that, but you got indicted back. What I was saying, I was asking, you got indicted back in 1995. How did that work out? Did they send you something? Did they pick you up? Did you go and turn yourself in? How that worked out?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was never one to turn myself in on any
Okay,
level,
I
state,
understand that.
federal. In fact, the state had to catch me a couple times because once I made bond, I was out. Um, Actually, I got indicted the summer of 1994, and a couple of my co-defendants were picked up, and immediately I fled town, and the government, the U.S. Marshals, found me in Buffalo, New York, in January 1995. So I was on a run for 7 months. Um, the Marshals picked me up January 27th, 1995. They had to come get me.
Wow, those are just what make us. I'm smiling, laughing because you don't forget those dates.
Them life changing moments that forever gonna be etched in my brain.
All right, yeah, we're gonna get to the life changing moment because I want to know about it. So you get picked up. This 1995. Where did it take you to?
The first place they picked me up in Buffalo, New York. They took me to Otisville, New York, uh, for a holdover. Then they took me to MCC Manhattan, like the high rise. Then
Yes.
they had 10 days to get me back to North Carolina. They took a plane, got me to Charlotte. Then they took me to High Point Jail, no, Greensboro. Then I went from there, made a in Forsyth County, which is in Salem. Then I was just all over places until they set off to the feds to go do my time.
Let me ask you this. I know in court when they read your time,
Mm-hmm.
how impressed did you realize how much time were you doing when they, the judge hits a gavel and end up doing that? Did you just how was that?
Well,
Because
at
that
the
is
at the time, I was yeah, I was 22 years old, and they literally gave me a 22-year sentence, and they read out the months, and my aunt, who's a like a mathematician, my aunt was present, my mom was present, and so when they said that, maybe 15 seconds after they gave the months, my aunt jumped up and she like, he didn't kill nobody. 22 years. And my mama, she just dropped her head. And I mean, I don't know. I just seen my whole life really just flash in front of me. And the judge asked, do I understand, the sentence or whatever? And I don't know. At that time, I was so ignorant. I didn't want to look ignorant to say I don't understand because I really didn't at that time. Courts have a whole different type of jargon and language that if you ain't studied Black's law books, you don't know all those big terms and that they use. And so I told him, yeah, I understood, but really I didn't. But so I was given 22 years in the feds for conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine, for possession of a firearms doing drug trafficking offenses, and one was dropped, but it was a knowingly, willfully, unlawfully using minors in a event of a drug trafficking offense. So yeah, they gave me 22 years when I was 20. Pretty much, they gave me a year for every year I had lived.
And that's a big wow. I mean, and you're right, because a lot of people end up in front of the judge in the court, and they read the sentence, and they'll say yes, they understand, but they really have no clue what just happened. The life changing moment that is just in front of them. It's just like, I remember one other guy telling me about when the judge read his sentence, and the guy, he tells him, it's 350 months, you're going to be in prison. It took him a few seconds. He went, sat back down. He said, "Oh my God, I'm doing 30 years for, in prison for what?" And he just really lost it after that. And that made a big change on him. He lost, all. So a lot of people don't realize right then and there what is going on when you're being told that. And your family was there. How was your family support throughout that time? And how was your family support in prison?
I mean, my mom always been there for me. Different aunts and family members. I had reconnected with my father when I was on a run, and he passed away while I was in prison. But the early part of my incarceration, we were in touch before he passed away. My mom, because my mom never drove, so she would always get people to come take her to visit me. So I used to tell her when I started out in Terre Haute, Indiana. So coming from North Carolina to Terre Haute, Indiana, I told her don't worry about a visit. Then I moved to Cumberland, Maryland, which still is a little drive from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So I told her, don't worry about a visit. So I didn't have a visit until maybe after 5 years into my sentence when I was at Edgefield, South Carolina, when they opened that up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I hadn't seen my mom for 5 years. And of course, she broke down and cried. And, I tried to hold it together. You know how we do, playing tough. And the first visit was why that's something that stand out in my head as well. You know.
I can imagine, it's just that little knot here and your butterflies in your
Exactly.
stomach. When you think about it, it comes right back. It
Exactly.
doesn't, and it doesn't go away. Memories like that don't go away.
Yes, sir.
One thing that I love to ask, that first day walk in, well, you went to Terre Haute. Wow, okay. That's a lot of people don't understand the level of where you ended up at. You ended up in Terre Haute, which is a penitentiary.
Yes,
How
sir.
was that first day, that first instance when not just that, when they tell you you're going, this is where you're going, and you have all that in your mind and you get to Terre Haute?
Well, when I went in, I mean, of course, prison wasn't anything new, but I had never been shipped so far away. I always did my time in North Carolina on the state. But I went to Terre Haute, and if you know Terre Haute, it gets cold and it's freezing up there. And so I went in the winter. It was cold when I got up there. It was it was pretty cold. And all I remember is going in when they took me in. The room, actually, you could see icicles, long icicles hanging from wherever way that they walk you into the prison. And you know, this was an old penitentiary. Looked like a dungeon. For those who don't know, this where they actually um when the Oklahoma City bomber
Yeah,
Timothy McVeigh.
McVeigh. He was a
They,
he
yeah, this
was
was where they executed him at the same
yes.
prison. and it was just like a big dungeon. And just where I'm from, I mean, I didn't fall from heaven. I came up from hell. So I just looked at it like, hey, I gotta do what I gotta do by any means necessary. Just how I did in the streets, just how I did on state. And I went in there with that mentality. But at the same time, I didn't go in there saying, like I'm gonna be tough or whatever the case. Um, my mentality going in was 22 years. I'm 22 years old. I can't go home with the same mindset that I went in with. That was my outlook.
So that was so. The question was this I had in the comments. What's straining you out? What was that difference? Why you start thinking? I know you just gave me a little bit of that. 22 years, you had it in your mind, but expand a little bit a little bit more on that because that kind of changed your thinking began to change right then and there. What made you change?
Well, let me say this, that when I was given my time, my lawyer was telling me, don't worry about that time. You're not going to do all that time, because at the time the attorney general, Janet Reno, they were in the process of trying to say that the crack law was a racially biased law, which ultimately they did come and change, and that's how I actually was granted early release before I did the whole sentence. But at that time, I'm thinking, okay, let me go in here. I have three younger brothers who always have depended on me. My mother depended on me. And, I don't want to keep running in and out of these institutions, in and out of these institutions. So I made up my mind that if I was to get out early, when I get out, I was going to be prepared to be a different individual. So I just took a route of studying, learning. I became a member of the Nation of Islam. I started practicing all type of discipline. I became a vegetarian, which I haven't eaten meat since 1995. That was one of the disciplines I practiced and continued to this day. Just wanting to be, just wanting to keep my freedom whenever it was given back to me at that particular time. That was my mindset, that I can't keep doing it like this. In fact, in the streets, I've been shot on 2 different occasions. I've been stabbed on 2 different occasions. I've been robbed with like 5 or 6 different guns pointed at me at one time, on my knees, robbed for drugs, and just all of that flashing through my head. It was a blessing that I made it to prison, to be able to sit down for a while and get my thoughts and my life together. And that was my mentality. I can't go back out there living that crazy life that I was living. So let me go and get it together while I have time, time on my hands.
That's that's awesome. Um, Anybody that while in prison that you remember that really impact you?
Well, the first person that impacted me, in no disrespect, was a fool.
Okay,
and
that's all right.
and they say that the commercial that say you can learn a lot from a dummy. And
Yeah,
before I got to Terre Haute, I was in the county jail with a guy who told me, he said, how much time you got? I said, man, they just gave me 22 years. He said, man, he said, you 22? Oh, that ain't nothing. He said, I did 20 something years in the feds. He said, I'm going back for a violation. They found cocaine in my system. He said, I got out and started smoking crack. Said, but man, I'm telling you, don't worry about that. That ain't nothing. You still gonna be young when you get out. And that was the first
wow,
person that impacted me, because I said, hey, this guy is a fool, to do
wow.
20 something years in prison and come home. Obviously, he went to prison before the crack cocaine era really hit, and come out and did all that time and got hooked on crack, which led him back to the feds. And so he was one of the first persons that impacted me. And after that, it was individuals who was in the Nation of Islam who all they did was study, read, try to be an example for the other guys who was in prison, invite them out to services. You know, those guys stood out to me. Some of them I'm still in contact with to this day. You know, a lot of guys up there, they had, some of them wasn't going home. So I mean, you know, the unit that I was in was called 5M. They called it Five Murder. You know, that was, I mean, it wasn't nothing like state. I mean, seeing guys fight the staff, seeing the staff coming in, hitting the deuces, and coming with the goon squad with
Yeah.
shields, and face masks, and pepper spray, and rubber bullets, and concussion, those concussion things that they set off. Boom, seeing all this stuff, and and seeing that these guys, some of them had 60 years, some of them had life. And in the feds, life is life. Unless you get something overturned on your sentence, ain't no you do 15 years and come home. I met guys who, were never going home, and everything was about respect. And them guys told me, just school me to what was going on. Mind your business, mind your own. You live long. If you see a shoestring over there in the hallway when you're walking down the hall, leave that shoestring alone. It ain't yours. Mind your business. That was my outlook, because again, I didn't want to come. I was considered a short timer at Terry Hut. I had 22 years.
Right.
I was considered a short timer to guys who, in fact, the first World Trade Center bombers, the guys who first tried to blow up the World Trade, they was up at Terry Hut.
Yes.
It was a lot of high profile cases that was at Terry Hut. And so again, I just took a page out of their book, man. Try to learn, try to study my case to see if I could find a loophole, gain some knowledge, expand my outlook on life, and get prepared, for whenever I hit the streets again, so that I won't go back to the lifestyle that I knew previously before coming to prison.
Right. So it was a blessing. You got disciplined. It just made a change that's kind of unexpected for you. Then you saw other people that just come to prison. You were amazed at seeing that, man, you're in prison. You're not making a change. You can't see the outlook. What is this happening here? And you're going to get out and you're not making a change. You made a change. Go ahead.
Mr. Luke, I just want to interject that you being a counselor in the feds, you being a lieutenant, you know that it's just as much, not as much, but I'm just saying it's enough. It's enough drugs in prison. It's enough alcohol in prison, that in prison, I just want to make it clear that to me, prison didn't rehabilitate me. It was a conscious, deliberate choice, because I could have sold drugs in prison. I could have drank wine in prison. I could have smoked weed in prison. I could have played numbers and tickets in prison, because that was the norm. But I made a conscious, deliberate choice to change my life. In fact, when you look at the word, rehabilitate, habilitate means to make able. Means to do again. I personally feel like I was never habilitated in life, so I can't be rehabilitated if I never was habilitated. So I made a conscious choice in my life to habilitate myself, it was an opportunity, the books, the discipline, the being away from that life, on that level. Because again, it was in the prison. And you done seen, I think I done seen you walking up the compound carrying some bags of hooch, that y'all done busted and found from somewhere.
Yeah.
So the drink was there, the drugs was there. And you got to make a conscious decision, and that's what I did. I made a conscious decision to change my life.
And I think when I met you, and you already have made that change, and that's what one of the things that you always stood out to me for that reason, is because you have made that change, and I could tell you wanted that change. You were in prison, you were incarcerated, but you also already had a different focus that I saw in you that I didn't see on I saw in some other guys, because you and I got in conversations. We worked with some other a lot of the other inmates as well.
Yes, sir.
But I could tell that you had made that change. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I always realized that about you. I was like, wow, he made a change. And I kind of always wanted, and this is awesome to me to see you now, and we've been able to make contact and all that, and I think is so amazing. And just to let me know that everything is not lost. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The hardest part is will be teaching other people to realize you got to make that conscious change, and all the little things that you need to do to put it in place. And I know you did a lot of work. You with Nation Islam and some of the schools, but anything other? Tell me about anything else specific that you did in prison that made you change, whether it was school, work, anything, maybe somebody else as well that you can remember.
Well, I engaged in a lot of programs. One of the programs that you and I collaborated on, it was your program, and you brought me in as a mentor.
It was your guys' program. Y'all put that took a year. It
Yeah,
took a year putting that together. You sat down with me. There was like six of us. We sat down, and it took us a year to put what is it we wanted. And I think it worked out very, very well.
yeah, that was the men in transition program.
Yes.
Um, then what was that? Back on track.
No, back on track. Men in Transition was one of the other programs.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
it wasn't back on track. That was another program. We created a program that was called. Oh my God! It just went up. Um,
I thought it was men in transition was the one we did with you.
we did Men in Transition. We did the other one, and I'm drawing a blank right now. Malcolm.
Yeah.
Well,
I did back on track, which was similar to like a scared straight program where they out of maybe what was the population at Butler? Maybe 12, 1300 or
1,200, about 12, 1,300. Yes.
yeah. So out of that 12 or 1300, Jefferson them selected eight inmates who fit the criteria to be able to go out and speak to children from the age of 8 to maybe 20. They would bring the children in like at-risk youth, and they would bring them into the compound, and we would go into the visiting room, and not a scared straight like the one that was on TV where you hollering, yelling at them, but just really talking to the children. That was a program I did. I did a program with Dr. Forby where we were like actually mentors on the compound to the young guys who was coming into the prison. I took college courses. I did all kind of Black History programs, Juneteenth programs, every program you could think of. I was always tied in with the education department to actually be one of the members of a committee who put together all the programs in the institution. That was over at the Medium. I did the same thing when I was at Cumberland, Maryland, Edgefield. They say that constructive activity, replaces destructive behavior. So I just threw myself into constructive activity my whole incarceration.
Man,
You
you need
know,
to write you need to write that down and send it to me. Constructive behavior. Yeah, definitely we can use that. I like that. We're gonna have to make a sign for that. The class, a fresh start. That is
fresh
what
start. Okay,
a
yeah,
fresh start. That's what we
fresh
created
start.
for that time, and it went for
Yes,
six
sir.
months. We had that 6 month. We lost some people. We got, but one thing that I always said that program, we had quite a bit of us that a bit of you that like you they had a lot of success once they got out after the program and utilized a lot of stuff they worked on. And it wasn't just my ideas or what I saw, it was your and everybody else in the committee that I put together, you guys' ideas. You're the ones that put the program together. And I thought it was great. I think it worked out great. Many of the people that went through it enjoyed it. Um, they've gotten a lot out of it. I know not long ago you had one other guy that passed away. I
Yeah.
think he was in that
We
group as
we
well.
yeah. His name was King. We called him King, and yeah, he passed away from the Lou Gehrig disease.
Okay, yeah,
Good guy, but he came home, went right to the communities, and was doing a whole lot of work with the youth, and he really stuck to what he said he was gonna do when he got out.
that's beautiful. Um, when you got out, I got that question in the back of my head. I know. Um, First day you get out, how was that? What did you do? How was that feeling when you first got out? We'll go, and I'm also going to hear something else about that. But how
Yeah,
was
when
that feeling?
the first day it was like I thought I was dreaming because again I went to prison. I was 22. I came home. I was 40. So it was like a dream. When I got to the bus station, because I had a little money that they gave me out of my account or whatever, and I bought some gum. That's the first thing I went to the machine and bought me a pack of juicy fruit just to be able to put some money in the machine and buy some juicy fruit. I was like, wow. So I rode the bus. I think I chewed the whole pack of juicy fruit on the way from the bus station. Um, my first day, man, my mom, they knew I was coming home, but they didn't know when because I got immediate release. I was given immediate release because the courts overturned the law that I was sentenced up under, and they finally gave me relief from it. So I didn't tell my mom. I wanted to surprise her, and I went home and she had just had a surgery on her neck that she didn't tell me about while I was away. So she really couldn't talk, but she just cried and cried and cried. I cried too, man. I was actually fasting when I came home. I was on a fast, and so I continued my fast that day. And I think I broke my fast the next day. But man, it was just seeing my family. It was unreal. It was like a dream. It was like a dream. You know, because when you come out, you have all me personally, I had so much ideas or so much that I wanted to do and so much that I wasn't gonna do. It wasn't pressure. It felt like pressure was taken off, taken like the world was just lifted off your shoulders. But that's just a transition because real fast you wake up into the real world and now you have bills, you have this, you have these temptations. And so that first day, man, it was just like a movie, really. Everything released off you, that pressure, then the overwhelming feeling of being free. uh yeah, it was a major moment in my life, man.
Wow. Um, so you got an early release,
Mm-hmm.
and how long you been? But I know I was in when they started making some changes back in 1996 with the crack laws.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were getting some early release, but your early release came, the income, wow, you already had done almost 20 years.
Yeah, Yeah, I came home in 2012, because even though the law changed, they didn't just say, okay, you had to go through the courts. You had to appeal to the courts to get your relief, even though it was a law that a change that was made in the law by Congress. So yeah, I came home 2012, and yeah, it didn't just happen early on. But it finally did happen. And it's been 10 years now. I've been home for 10 years, a whole decade. Never had a new charge, never. I've actually had 3 children since I've been home, which you've
Hmm.
met my children. I had 2 sons and a daughter since I've been home. I was able to meet my oldest daughter, who I didn't meet until I came home. I have a beautiful relationship with her, and I have a beautiful fiance, a beautiful family. I work. Now I'm really wanting to get into some of the things like that we speaking about now, like prison reform, uh, working with individuals who coming out of the prison system, helping to make that transition, because from experience I know that the mind suggests certain things to you. Go back to doing what you know how to do. It's sort of like being an alcoholic. They say
Right.
you're forever an alcoholic in recovery. Well, I sort of feel like I'm always going to be a criminal in recovery. Not that not I
Yeah.
mean because I mean it
You.
just suggests, the mind suggests certain things, but the key to it is if you act on it or not. And so I've disciplined myself and expanded my vision to know that that's beneath me. Certain hustling and certain type of hustling
So
illegal is beneath me. That's the least of my potential.
so you were tempted when you got out.
Well, I'm not real. No, no, no,
Okay.
no. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say that naturally ideas come into the head,
Okay.
because again, I went from prior to prison making fast money, real fast money, decent,
Okay.
decent money, and to come back home and working like minimum wage jobs at Pizza Hut. I'm 40 years old. I'm working with teenagers who's 17, 18, and I'm up in there making pizzas. And I believe that at one point I had 3 jobs when I first came home. I was making, I was doing 85 hours a week. I had 1 full time and 2 part times. I worked my full time during the day. When I got off, I went to one or the other part-time job. So I was doing 85 hours a week because one job was just insufficient monetarily to support a grown man. But I remember one time before I got the 2 part times, I pulled up in the driveway. I was still staying with my mom. This was maybe like toward the end of the first year. And I remember being in tears because I was like, there's no way that being a grown man getting this check every week for right at $300 is gonna suffice me. So I called a guy. I said, man, listen, I'm just I can't do it like this, man. I need to. And he was like, man, just get you a part. So I went and got 2 part-time jobs. So I don't know if you want to say I was tempted or not, but I just really, because I didn't act on it. I didn't attempt to go back to the streets. I just made a call and expressed it to somebody. And again, their advice was, man, get a part-time job. And so I got 2 part-time jobs. And every job after that has been a better job. And the job I'm on now, I make $28 an hour. After 10 years, I'm on a job where I make $28 an hour. And so, you just have to be able to weather the storm, man, and know that it gets greater later if you stay persistent.
I think you just, you hit the nail on the head. Weather the storm. I mean, because
Oh,
I
they
see a lot of
coming.
people. Yeah, because it's coming. The storm's
Oh,
coming.
they
It comes to everybody. Um,
Right. Hey, how you
uh,
doing, Keone? I always jump in towards the end because we have a couple questions that people wanted to ask, and I love the fact that you talked about it from a personal perspective and a prisoner's perspective of what you need to do when you get out. And me and Pedro kind of tackle what we need to do as a society. So in our first episode, we talked a lot about employers. When you see, because you don't want to lie on a job application, so when you see serve time in prison and you put yes, don't cast those people off. They've served their time. If they're filling out a job application, they're trying to do the right thing. So we also have to do better as a society in saying, hey, this person, how long does this person have to say I'm sorry? They've gone to jail, they've served time. If they've come out and they're trying to be productive, let's help them be productive. Let's not make it harder for them to be productive, because that thing you were talking about the mind suggests, the harder it gets, the more those suggestions sound louder. Am I wrong?
Sir, you're 100% correct. Again, those voices actually had me to the point where, as a grown man, because I'm wrestling to not act on it, I literally teared up in the driveway just sitting in my. I actually opened my check, and my check was like $290.
Mm-hmm.
And just being real, I said, man, ain't no way in the hell 290. I got a car, and I'm at that time my car payment was $400, and hell, by the time, I mean, it was just, you get them thoughts, man. But again, I'm proof that to those coming out of prison, you're gonna be tempted. You're gonna get those thoughts. The mind is gonna make suggestions. That's just human nature. I mean, but the thing is, do you give life to those thoughts, or do you control, your destination, your destiny, where you going, or do you allow those thoughts to take you off track? And man, I would say, like, I remember, just real briefly, I remember when before you come home in the feds, they have these classes that like prepare you to go home, and they had the people who 2 years under, and guys was actually saying, man, I'm scared to go home, man. It's a recession out there. And my mentality was, man, you could throw me in Alaska and I'm gonna sell ice to an Eskimo. I don't care where you put me at, I'm gonna survive, and I don't have to. I mean, my whole life been a recession. So it being a recession out there is nothing new. I grew up in a recession, a regression, whatever you want to call it.
Impression, like all that,
it just,
all
yeah.
I'm telling you. So, but what I want to say real briefly is this: when you did X amount of time, those background checks normally only, unless it's murder or something super violent, they only go back 7 years. And it's not when you get out, it's when you were charged. So I was going to jobs and I wasn't even showing up because I had been gone for 17 years. So my criminal history wasn't even showing up because they were 17 years old. So it's no excuse. People like, you can't get a job, man. It was so many jobs out here. I mean, I had to go through the ones that I could get at the time because I needed money. But every year that I've been home, man, better opportunities have presented themselves.
Just weather the storm.
Weather the storm, man.
Weather the storm.
your circumstances will dictate. It's one thing to, like you were saying, a grown man, and then I've had friends. They get out of prison. They've got 5, 6 kids. That McDonald's paycheck, they're trying. really hard. And so it's like the more factors you put on there, the harder. But you've got to find a focal point. And like you said, you've got to make the conscious decision that I'm going to do better. But another important thing you talked about is it doesn't, it's like I did 20 years in the Army, and we always tell people you can't think about your life after the 20 years when you drop your retirement. You started to thinking about that while in prison. You can't wait until you're out of prison to start thinking about how I'm going to get my life together. How
Exactly.
important is that to start?
In prison, a lot of guys say this. They say, I'm not going to say what I'm not going to do. And they always leave the option open to return back to that which led them to prison in the first place. I was different. When people tell me I ain't going to say what I ain't going to do, I say I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do, and I'm going to stick to it. Not to be religious, but the Bible say a double-minded man is wavering in all his ways. So I was determined not to sell drugs, not to sell narcotics, not to go back to that. So whatever it took, whether it was one job, two jobs, and like I said, 3 jobs, financially, I was going to take care of myself through legal means. And so it's just that made up mind. But if you always saying what I can't say, then you always in doubt. And eventually that doubt can become like a cancer, and whatever good aspirations or ideas that you have, it's going to eat it up. And another thing guys have to, like people like me who say, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes when you walk out of that prison after all them years, the feeling can be so overwhelming that you have your freedom and you forget all of that. That's why they say guys in prison, we prison talk. Oh, he just talking that jail talk, that prison talk, because a lot of them may be sincere when they in there, but that overwhelming feeling that they wasn't anticipating flood away all of that, and they relapse and go back. But I was mindful of that feeling, that overwhelming feeling, and I didn't let it override what I said I was going to do, which was, stay free and, live my life forever free.
You crossed that bridge and you burned it. That's what you
Exactly.
did.
Blew it up.
You were like, you blew it up. You weren't going back there.
Another thing that was brought up, because Pedro was speaking from the officer side, was talking about in earlier episodes that he can tell when he's counseling and talking to a prisoner if there was somebody who wanted to turn around and if they were just speaking that nonsense. Can you speak from a prisoner side of when you're dealing with someone like a Pedro as a counselor and officer? Can you tell those ones who are generally trying to help you while you're in prison, besides the ones who are just talking the talk or just there to collect the paycheck?
Well, honestly, Mr. Lugo always stood out because I met him through he was my counselor. He was also a lieutenant, but it was a guy who, another inmate who was like, man, Mr. Lugo putting together this program, and man, we want you to be a part of it. Mr. Lugo, if you remember, Lee Braggs. And because Mr. Lugo to me was the type that might let you get a phone. He was sincere about helping people. I mean, I'm a person who I'm big on vibes. I'm big on energy. You can say something out your mouth, but if it don't match your energy, your body language, I can automatically see through you. And Mr. Lugo was one of those individuals who was genuine and sincere about helping individuals. And Mr. Lugo always told me, he said, Malcolm, you're going to be one of those ones who I know is going to stay out. At that time, the law of recidivism was that 85% of the people that leave prison return in less than 3 years. And I knew that coming home. And my motto was, I guarantee you I'm going to be in that 15% that don't come back. And I've stuck to that. I'm parole free. I don't have no paper. I don't have no tie. My only ties to the system is Mr. Lugo. No, I'm joking. But other than that,
Yeah,
ties at
it
all
does.
to
It's
the
a good time.
yeah, no ties to the system. I'm genuinely free, and
Well,
Well, I
I,
yes,
want
I,
to.
sir.
I
Oh, go ahead, Pedro.
thing I have to say, Malcolm, and I said this to you, and I will say it again, but I'm proud of you, and I'm
Yes, sir.
proud of the person you are today. I'm proud of the father that you are because I watch you with your kids and how they they're just like you anyway, but they look all three of them, even you grow, just they all look like you so much. But
Yes, sir.
I just watch you and I seen you with your kids, and you are a great father, and you are
Thank you.
making a difference. You are making a difference through them that this going to make a change later on. You just breaking those chains and your family to make a difference in the future generations. And you
Yes,
should be
sir.
proud of that. And that is just one of the things that I'm amazed and really touches me every time I see you with your kids.
Yes,
John, I
sir.
know
This
you got
Yes,
something else.
Well, no, this is the part of the show where we do our final thoughts. We're going to do. We always do it different when we have a
Okay.
guest because we're going to end it with Malcolm instead of me and Pedro because we get to open our big mouths every week. So I'll go ahead and start off. I'll throw it to you, Pedro, and you throw it to Malcolm, and we'll see everybody out. My final thoughts is look at the person that we're interviewing today, and remember that people are human. Okay, when we picture prisoners, don't always picture them as some person that's going to get out of jail and they can't anticipate breaking into your house or raping your daughter or doing something. We think of people in the most negative of light. Look at Malcolm with the big smile on his face, working hard, taking care of kids. Those are a lot of the people who are coming out in prison. Look at them as humans, and you'll learn to treat them better and help them so they don't be a part of that 85% that returns back to prison. Because no one in life does anything on their own. Pedro?
You just mentioned that 85%, and that's something we ought to think about because he didn't think every time we concentrate in the 85% of of the people that go back into jail, or we just concentrate. Well, they tell us 85%. Oh my God, 85% is such a big number. We are going to go back to prison. But he made the change, and he only concentrated. Well, it's a 15%. I'm in the 15%. I'm not in the 85. He made that switch. He made that turn. And that is something that you can apply in everything that you do in life. It's about thinking maybe it's a small percentage, but I'm going to be in that small percentage. I'm going to make it, and I'm going to make it happen. And I think that's one other thing we later on at some point we can talk about it more, but bring it in to teach it to those that are coming out that you don't have to be in that 85, 80, 85%. Think about being in the 15%, disregard the other one. So um, that is my final thought on that. I thought that was very, very amazing when you said that. And the other one, what is it? You gonna close us out with that? They tell you we're gonna have to put that on paper. Um, what was it?
Um, constructive activity replaces destructive behavior.
Wow, wow.
Oh, I
Constructive
thought you were talking
activity.
about I thought you were talking about you can learn a lot from a fool. That's what I was
Oh,
remembering. All
that
right.
too.
No, no, but that right there, constructive activity. Say that again.
Replaces
Constructive
destructive behavior.
behavior. We have to put that some. That
Yes,
is
sir.
just that's
Yes, sir.
very strong, very strong. A lot of people don't realize how important that is.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
And that's something that I started in prison while I was incarcerated and continued after I came home. You have to stay involved in some constructive because they say an idle mind is the devil workshop, man. If you're not doing nothing, then you allow all type of ideas to come into your head. And me personally, man, I've been home, like I said, for 10 years. I have a beautiful family, and they my alarm clock, they my reason to stay free. They everything. And man, you can anybody who come out, it's just what you want to do. I mean, don't nobody wake up and say, hey, I think I want to go to prison next week. you know, but at the same time, you got to wake up and say, man, I want to stay free. And I constantly remind myself, I want to stay free. I don't want nobody telling me when to go to bed, when to use the bathroom, when to use the phone. I mean, I can walk into the grocery store and pay for a mango and just eat it. I mean, just the small things in life, man, that we take for granted. I'm telling you, is nothing like freedom, man.
All right, all right. Okay, well, John, we're gonna close it out.
I don't know who this John got. Yeah, you the host, Pedro.
Keone.
I appreciate y'all for having me, man.
All right, Keone. Well, thank you, Malcolm. Again, it's been fantastic talking to you. You are you're a shining star right now, brother. Great job staying out. You are a family man. I'm proud of everything you have done. I'm proud as the father that I see you that you are today. You should be proud of your kids, and I know you are. They're awesome, and that's all we have. So till the next time, everybody, have a good evening. Hope to see you soon. And we are.